Thank you for joining me. This is our CV writing workshop. My name's Chris White. I've been working at Professional Technical for a little over 7 years now. I specialise in recruiting design and development talent, and I'm lucky enough to work with some of the world's most interesting businesses. So that ranges from world-renowned consumer goods brands to medtech and healthcare businesses, and I do a lot of work with consultancies as well. On this CV writing workshop, my aim is to enable you to secure more interviews by making a great first impression. So let's get started. So on this session, we're going to look at how to lay out your CV and what you should put in it. I'm going to share with you some top tips and trade secrets. I'm going to review a handful of CVs that people have been kind enough to allow me to share. And then there'll be a Q&A session at the end. So first things first, bear these things in mind before you start writing your CV or rewriting it. So if anyone knows what the acronym KISS stands for, pop it in the chat box. That'd be great. So your CV should talk about who you are, what you can do, where you are, why you want to do it or why you do it, and how you do it. Who, what, where, why, and how. Fairly straightforward. Still with me here? First page is key. Okay, so same as first impressions count. In real life meetings, people tend to make a judgment on a person within 7 seconds of meeting them. Your CV is no different, so make that first page count. You want to make that first page so that that's as interesting as possible, so it hooks the reader in and gets them to read the rest. After that, it doesn't matter how long it is. 20-second rule, okay? So I've been recruiting for a long time now, at Professional Technical for 7 years, about 10 years of engineering recruitment in total. So I'm very quick at skim reading CVs. It's even more important for the rising internal recruiters to make sure that your CV has immediate impact, because they are fielding thousands and thousands of CVs at the moment. So applications have gone through the roof. We've seen a tenfold increase in this last kind of 6 months alone from where we were at this time last year. So they're under incredible pressure to get through CVs. So you've only got 20 seconds to make your impact. 2 or 3 pages is ideal. However, don't worry about going over. If you've got a lot of experience and it's relevant, stick it in there. So long as that first page makes them want to read the rest and the rest of it is laid out well, that's fine. Okay, so page 1. Here is an example CV that I bodged together. This is a completely fabricated person, but the companies are real. So these are a couple of my clients that I work with. Now, see Colin Vitae. He's based over in Coventry, just because that made sense for his postcode. Yeah, let's talk about how I put him together. So first and foremost, the person that is reading your CV needs to be able to know how to contact you. It's no good hiding it at the bottom of the CV. If your CV is 10 pages long, they'll have given up by then. So put it at the top, please, as well as your name. Make it very clear who you are. You want a short bio or profile. So that's a paragraph, a few lines of who you are, what you do, why you do it, and what you want to do. So on this person, he's a mechanical design engineer with over 10 years experience in end-to-end product development, working for leading consumer electronics brands and design consultancies. Enjoys technical problem solving, calculations, analysis and simulation work. Named inventor and multiple patents for innovative mechanism design. So straight away, if you're reading that as a potential employer, you get a good feeling about this. You're hooked. You want to know more. You've got some tangible kind of benefits in there as well to speaking to this person. Your job specific skills as well, they should be there on your first page. So on this guy, we've put him over on the left hand side. You might want to put it all in linear. It's personal choice, but it stands out there. There's plenty of white space around it. It's easy at a glance within that 20 seconds to see that this person's got design for manufacture, material selection, plastic injection, molding experience, which goes down quite well with a lot of my clients. If you've got a degree and it's relevant to the role, that goes at the top as well. No matter how much experience you've got, a lot of businesses, especially in consumer goods and design consultancy, they put a lot of weighting on qualifications. So if it's worth it, don't hide it at the back of your CV, put it front and center. And most importantly, if you don't get anything else on your first page, make sure it mentions where you work now or your most recent role. Okay, there's no good scrolling through 2 or 3 pages to find out that you were working in something completely irrelevant for the last 10 years. Okay, you need to get it front and center. So it's got to be on the top half of the first page, I think. So this guy's worked at a top design consultancy, he's a senior mechanical engineer. That alone, for some clients, will be enough for them to pick up the phone and give this guy a call. So make sure it's on page 1, and that will make them want to read the rest of the CV. Okay, so what about the rest? So because I've made this person up, I'm not putting together a 3 or 4 page CV just for the sake of it. I've got better things to do in my time, but the rest of your CV, it should cover the rest of your career history. So on this one, we've talked about a placement that they did. Make sure it goes in reverse chronological order. So most recent at the top. So start with your most recent job on the first page and then carry on in reverse chronological order. Make sure that you, on that the dates stack up. Put your months in there as well. I see it all the time where people will put just the years that they've worked. And it's less of an issue if you've worked somewhere for 5 years, but if you've worked at somewhere between 2008 and 2009, that could be a month or 2, so December to January, or it could be best part of 2 years. So especially if you have got some shorter stints or you're a contractor, those months in there will give a bit more context and more likely to help you secure an interview. What else have we got on here? So key responsibilities within each job. So you want to list out your responsibilities and your achievements within each role. Make sure that they're relevant, obviously. If you've achieved anything extracurricular, then that should go in the CV as well. Hobbies and interests definitely need to be on there. We've not I see it quite a lot where people don't talk about that, and often that can be the difference between kind of building the rapport easily or not in an interview. So, and especially this guy, I mean, I have lifted that from another candidate's CV, but that was enough to generate interest to get that person in for an interview. The fact that they did engineering stuff at home as a hobby. But it might be that you play guitar or you like video games and or you're into chess, whatever. And if that's a shared hobby with the person reading your CV, it creates a bit of intrigue, makes them want to find out more about you. So definitely put your hobbies on there. And I've put here detail the last 10 years, summarise the rest. So it's not saying that anything past a decade ago isn't relevant, but if they want more information, they can ask for it. There's no point kind of putting out a 20-page CV just for the sake of it. It's going to be, they're going to focus more on the last 10 years. The little asterisk there is if you've worked somewhere for the last 10 years, maybe put your previous job on there as well, just to add a bit more context. But I hope that's clear. And finally, just go into a bit more detail on your qualifications here. So again, your degrees on there. There's put your qualification on there. I've spoken to plenty of design engineers over the years who have got a first class or a 2-1, but they haven't put the grade on there. And call me a skeptic, but if someone doesn't put a grade on a CV, I assume that they've got a 2-2 or a 3rd. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Experience trumps qualifications at the end of the day, but definitely if you've got a 2-1 or a first, chuck it on there. You should be proud of that. And same with A-levels. Again, less relevant to a lot of businesses the more experience you have, but there are a number of, especially consultancies around the Cambridge area are particularly good at this, and high-tech businesses like to know that the people that they're hiring have got a solid foundation in maths and physics, especially if you're a mechanical engineer, or if you're a product designer, something more creative. It just shows that where you've come from, really. Your CV is your kind of life story, career-wise. So chuck it on there. Okay, hopefully you're all still with me. So top tips and trade secrets. First impressions count. So as I said, you've got 20 seconds to make that first impression and get them reading the rest of your CV and ideally giving you a call. So use the spell checker. I can't stress this enough. Having poor spelling is no excuse for putting out misspelled content, because there are plenty of tools out there, so use them. Layout and styling matter. So again, with your CV, you want to make it appeal. We'll talk about this, the colour and layout in a moment, but it really does. You don't want on just a big block of text, because there's nothing more likely to put someone off reading your CV than if they're having to try and having to squint to see what they're reading. Make sure you incorporate plenty of white space. Colour and images, again, we'll go through some example CVs in a moment. Clear and clean fonts. So unless you're a primary school teacher, you should never use Comic Sans. You want to make it look as professional and as approachable as possible. That handwritten style, I'm having to squint at it. Get a friend or a recruiter to proofread your CV, not just relying on the spell checker here. You're asking someone else to make sure that it reads well, and you're getting it prepared for sending out. If you're working with a recruiter on securing a role, it's in their interest to give you feedback on the CV and make sure that it's as prepared as possible before it goes out to their clients. At the end of the day, they want to place you, so they want to give you the best opportunity to do so. And the final top tip is save your CV as a PDF. However you've written it, whether it's in Word, Pages, Notepad or whatever, Photoshop, doesn't really matter, but save it as a PDF, because last thing you want is to go out with kind of little red squiggles or whatever, and PDF just looks a lot neater as well on the screen. It's universal. You're not going to have a job board like CV Library ruin it by popping their logo at the top and pushing everything out of order. It's pretty robust. Some of you will do this already, some of you won't, but it's a good idea to personalise your CV and covering letter for each application. Sounds basic, but most people don't do it. So look at what the job description is asking for. Make sure that that's in there, and if you can do it, make sure it's in there in your CV and in your covering letter. There's no harm having a generic CV and covering letter that you edit, because a lot of the time the jobs are going to be looking for very similar things, but make it personal. So research the company on LinkedIn. There's a wealth of information out there that you can find on the people that are going to be looking at your CV, the people doing the job. And if you look at a company and you see that half their employees are ex-Dyson and you've just been made redundant from Dyson, then you might want to mention that, because you're going to have some contacts there potentially, or they're familiar with the way that you work. So let's always check them out on LinkedIn. Make sure you spell their name correctly as well. When you're writing them a covering letter, just take that extra care to make sure that if the hiring manager's name is Claire, for instance, that is it with an I or is it without? If you're sending me an email or a covering letter, is it addressed to Chris White, like the colour, or Chris White as the proper way of spelling? Find the most relevant technical contact. Again, this is all, you can do this all through LinkedIn or through the company page. So often there'll be internal recruiters there that you can send your CV off to, but there's no harm in finding the technical director or the engineering manager or design manager, whoever it might be that would be actually recruiting that position rather than screening CVs. Find out who they are, and drop them an email, connect with them on LinkedIn, give them a phone call when you sent your application off, follow it up. If you take nothing else from this session, that is the one thing I'd recommend to everyone start doing. Follow up your applications with a phone call, and last case an email or an in-mail. It makes such a difference. You're essentially jumping the queue. and going back to personalising CV, create a CV for recruiters and a CV for applications. So if you work with me, for instance, I only work on design engineer, product designer, those types of roles. So more often than not, the job descriptions that I work on are the same. There's just slight differences. So, and when I put your CV in front of a client, I'll be doing it with a phone call, and I'll be doing it with a cover sheet that we've put together. So that's not unique to professional technical. That's a fairly common practice. So if you're speaking to a specialist recruiter, have a general one that covers all bases, and then you have a separate CV for your applications, which again you tailor for your application. It's a good one to note that most recruiters will search for keywords. So you've just applied for a job, you've put your CV through CV Library or job site. Did you know that when you do that, your CV then goes onto that database? So, and recruiters pay to have access to that database. So unless you tick a tiny little box that says, do not include me on the database, chances are your CV's gone out there so that recruiters can find it. So it's a blessing and a curse, because if you've got a great CV, you're going to get a lot of calls, but you're going to get a lot of calls from recruiters. So you choose how you want to play that. But if you want to increase the relevant calls, make sure that your CV has got relevant keywords in there, but please do avoid keyword spamming for the sake of it. If you're a design engineer, throughout your CV, you maybe mention different kind of job titles that might come down as, so mechanical design engineer, mechanical designer, you know, like that kind of thing. Just so that you're kind of trying to second guess what recruiters, internal or agency recruiters, might be popping into their search to try and find CVs, and you want to appear at the top of that list every time. So again, use industry standard job titles. So there's design engineer. If you're a design engineer or some kind of variant of that, that should be your job title on your CV. Doesn't matter what's on your business card or your contract. If you're doing the job of a design engineer, regardless of you being called a mechanical engineer grade 2 or whatever variation it is, or consultant mechanical engineering, recruiters generally won't be searching for that. They'll be searching for design engineer. They'll also be searching for SolidWorks or plastic injection molding or something like that. So make sure that they're mentioned. And again, yeah, add your keywords, but put them in context. Kind of write them into the sentences and avoid big list of keywords. We can see straight through it if you're putting a big block of keywords at the bottom but changing the colour to white. I'll let you in on the secret here. When we search the job boards and we're looking for keywords, the results have the keywords highlighted in yellow on the job board. So if you've got a big block of text, it stands out like a sore thumb at the bottom, even though you thought you've hidden it. So whilst that's, I get why you've done it, and it's not going to put me off speaking to a candidate, it might cause a bit of suspicion from the internal recruiter or the hiring manager as to, are you actually relevant for this role? The last thing you want to do is create reasons for someone not to give you a call. Okay, stop doing these things. And hopefully you'll gain more interviews. So there's a general rule of thumb that a CV should be 2 pages. That's fairly well known. I disagree. I think if you've got more to say, spread it out over 3 or 4 pages. Last thing we like to see is big blocks of text or tiny writing, trying to squeeze everything in, because I'd rather read through 4 pages than one and trying to squint to see what it is. Software logos and skills icons with no labels. So I'm pretty sure I know what they are, but without any labels or context, it could be anything. So, and again, putting images in your CV. I'm not saying don't do it because you want to make your CV stand out, but if you're going to do it, put some labels on it, because that text then is your keyword. So it's going to make a lot more sense it's going to help you be found. If a recruiter's looking for SolidWorks and you've only put it as a Dassault Systems logo, then they're probably not going to find you. And then bar charts, scales, pie charts, or whatever to demonstrate experience. Again, this isn't going to help you appear in searches. It isn't going to help your CV be found. How do you? What makes someone a 3.5 stars in Creo? And what scale's that out of? Is it out of 4? Is it out of 5? Is it out of 20? Not really in any context there. It's much better to kind of write it out and give some kind of examples. And please stop sending CVs out in Pages format. I'm a Mac user, I love it, so if you send me a Pages document, that's fine. But I'll be honest with you, to access my work desktop, I have to log in through a Citrix remote desktop, which is a Windows-based desktop which doesn't have Pages installed. So it's a bit of a faff for me to open that. Now, the vast majority of business users out there, especially internal recruiters, they're going to be using Word or kind of Microsoft Office packages and Windows. So sending them in Pages is likely just to get your CV put in the reject pile because it's too much effort. They've got hundreds of other CVs to look through. So save it as a PDF. You still kind of have the nice styling, but it can be read anywhere. And this is a big bugbear of mine as well. So putting in a big block of experience but giving no context. So if you're a contractor and rightfully so, you've been working for yourself, you've had lots of short kind of assignments, but you might have gone back. So if you listed all of those jobs out, you're kind of going on to 10-15 pages. I get that, but give something for the reader to engage in. So give some detail about some of the projects they're looking for longevity. And if you've done repeat business, just summarise it in one and give the dates of when you were there or how many assignments. Give them something to bite into. Just put in freelancer 1998 to present, design engineer contracts or whatever. That's not going to get you to appear on many searches. It's not going to get you so much interest from the clients either. So give some detail. List your companies, your dates and your projects.